En el centro de la pampa vive un pimiento. Sol y viento pa' su vida, sol y viento. Sol y viento pa' su vida, sol y viento.
Hello, I am Patrick Barnard. Welcome to the 103rd edition of the Pimento Report. It's Easter Sunday 2016, and the name of this report is quite simply Pierrefonds, for the record. The purpose here is to put certain facts that have emerged recently out into the public arena. It's about the 185 precious hectares of wet meadows, or prairies humides in French, that are in Pierrefonds and that people are fighting for. The 185 hectares of wet meadows in Western Pierrefonds are an environmentally rich area, but they are now threatened by a massive housing development. Here's the 5 facts that have recently emerged. First, the science. On February 23rd, the David Suzuki Foundation here in Montreal revealed 2 scientific studies. The first was a study of the area itself. It revealed that there are more than 270 species of flora and fauna on those wet meadows, some of them endangered. And secondly, another study revealed that the wet meadows are intimately connected to the connectivity, as biologists call it, of that whole nature area. The second new element here, a political one. There's a councillor who sits on the council of the borough of Pierrefonds-Roxborough. Her name is Justine McIntyre. On the very same day that the Suzuki Foundation brought out its reports, Justine McIntyre made an important statement in the City Council of Montreal.
There are a lot of unknowns in this project. People come to me because I'm a councillor in Pierrefonds and I'm supposed to know what's happening in Pierrefonds. I don't have answers for them. I don't know what's happening in Pierrefonds. Somebody does. It's not me. And I would like to submit that there is somebody in this council somewhere, hopefully in my own borough, that knows what this project is all about. Because I don't. So when the leader of the opposition says it's going to be monster homes, can we blame him? How does he know what's in the project? How does anybody know? Because we haven't seen the project. So then when the administration stands up and says, how can you dare say it's monster homes? You don't even know what it is. It's going to be du logement social, à 30% de logement social et abordable. Comment eux, ils ont ces informations-là? Si moi, je ne les ai pas.
A third element. The case of a lobbyist, a man named David Cliche. He's a former environment minister here in Quebec, a municipal employee, and now a lobbyist for the real estate developer. On March 21st, the local press revealed some interesting things. First of all, Mr. Cliche has been found guilty of 6 infractions of the Quebec lobbying law in another municipality outside of Montreal. And secondly, this has brought a kind of attention to him on the part of the borough for whom he worked. I want to quote another councillor who sits on the Montreal City Council here. Her name is Émilie Tullier. She's with Projet Montréal. And she said to the local paper Cité Nouvelle, and I'm quoting, David Cliche was hired as a lobbying consultant by the Grilly Development Corporation, which has a real estate project of 5,500 units in Pierrefonds West. And Mr. Cliche was an advisor to the City of Montreal for that same project. The fourth new element, it's the involvement of young people. Along with the 10,000 people who signed the petition, now young students at the local cégep Gérard Godin are becoming involved, getting behind the fight to save the wetlands of Pierrefonds West. The fifth element here concerns questions that were posed at the most recent meeting of the Montreal City Council on March 21st. Mr. Don Hobus of Sierra Club Quebec, Al Hayek of Les Amis du Parc Meadowbrook, and myself were all there at council. We posed questions to the mayor of Montreal. Justine McIntyre also made an important declaration. Let's listen to all of this right now for the record.
Monsieur Hobus, bonsoir.
Bonsoir. Good evening, I think. Last summer, the question is addressed to Mr. Kader. Last summer, Mr. Jean-Pierre Grilly, one of the proposed promoters of the L'Anse-Lorme area, stated that he had regular access to the mayor, and he was speaking of you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Kader. Following this revelation, we found out that Mr. David Clich, who was previously hired by the city under Resolution CA 09290107, is now the main lobbyist for the developer of this project. And recently, to our surprise, we just found out that another senior representative, Mr. Jean Lacroix, the former director de l'aménagement urbain et des services aux entreprises de la ville de Montréal, has also acted as a lobbyist for the same promoters. My question is, I would like to ask for the details of all of the contacts made with employees and officials of the city that were made by these lobbyists, the promoters, and others acting for the promoters, and regarding the proposed PPU for Pierrefonds West.
Question. Mr. Copeland.
Mr. Hobus, I think you will understand I don't have that information here. The administration doesn't have it. I think the kind of detail you're looking for would most properly be addressed in a access to information request. You know, if that request comes in, the clerk's office will treat it. But to suggest that that we can give you that information tonight, I think is completely unrealistic. And as I say, I think it's more appropriate that you make an access to information request in order to obtain that kind of information.
So question, Mr. Albus.
It's a restating of the same question, I guess, with the regards to the first question, and to be more specific, we want the names of the individuals who have acted for the promoters, the names of the city employees and elected officials contacted, the subject of the contact, written, verbal, or in person, and a copy of all documents exchanged, including plans, studies, and proposed zoning changes. Basically, we want this PPU to be halted until the people of Montreal have the same access, establishing the proposed PPU as those who have privileged access to the mayor and the city employees. We know from various surveys that the citizens are not aware of the project. Madame McIntyre made that very clear last month, I think it was. And when we speak to citizens, nobody knows anything about the project, except it seems that some people here maybe, and the promoters. So we would like access, the same access
Thank you.
that has been given to the promoters.
Mr. Copeland.
The same question tends to produce the same answer, Mr. Hobus. The kind of detail you're looking for, in our view, should properly be done through an access to information request. I think your suggestion that there's some privileged access to the mayor or to the mayor's office is incorrect. In terms of the eventual PPU, the Borough Council of Pierrefonds-Roxborough will examine a projet. There will be complete transparency in that regard. The mayor of Pierrefonds-Roxborough and this administration has indicated there will be a consultation done by the OCPM. I think to suggest that some people have access to information now, undue access is incorrect, is unfair, and as I say, when the Borough Council deals with the issue of the PPU, all the Borough Councillors will obtain all the information that's available. It will be done public. Borough Councils meet in public, and I'm utterly convinced that the City Councillors from Pierrefonds-Roxborough and Borough Councillors will have complete access to the documentation. Therefore, the public will have complete access to the documentation, because these are public documents and these are public sessions of the Borough Council of Pierrefonds-Roxborough.
Thank you, Mr. Albus.
Thank you. I will submit a
Thank you very
request.
much. Your question has been asked. Thank you, Mr. Albus.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Thank you. La question a été posée à l'administration et un membre de l'administration a répondu. Madame McIntyre.
Parce qu'on a nommé les conseillers de l'arrondissement de Pierrefonds-Roxborough.
Monsieur Hobus a cité votre nom, mais c'est-à-dire que vous n'avez pas été interpellé, Madame McIntyre.
To be continued next
Thank you,
month.
Mr. Hobus.
Thank you.
Prochain intervenant, Patrice Carré-Barnard. Bonsoir, monsieur.
Bonsoir, Monsieur le Président. Alors, je suis avec le groupe Sauvons le Salon. J'ai une question à poser au maire Coder, mais c'est peut-être M. Copeman qui va nous donner sa sagesse. Le mois de février, Justine McIntyre, qui est conseillère au Pierrefonds Roxborough, a dit dans cette salle qu'il n'y a aucune information pour elle, pour les citoyens, pour les gens qui ont signé, par exemple, cette pétition, 10 000 personnes, aucune information sur ce plan de développement immobilier. J'aimerais vous demander, pensez-vous que c'est normal? Moi, je trouve que quelque chose comme ça, c'est quelque chose qu'on trouve dans une société fermée. I would like to say that I find this objectionable. The idea that citizens have to wait until the Imperial Council finds it appropriate to give people a bit of information. Don't you think that you should give the citizens of Pierrefonds Roxborough some information now so that they can consider their reaction to the consultation?
Question, Mr. Bass.
Thank you very much for the question, Monsieur Président. Merci. If I could just talk about it very briefly in terms of what you mentioned, the public being involved in the process. To go back to what my colleague, Madame McIntyre, stated in February of this year regarding her not being aware of the project. In May of 2014, I asked the services, once we were given the mandate by the City of Montreal, the borough was given the mandate to start working on an eventual PPU that would be eventually presented to the public. We had our services do a PowerPoint presentation to council, including Mrs. McIntyre, where we outlined the orientation and the planning process for that development. So having said that, in all the council meetings that we've had to date at the city, we've clearly indicated that yes, the PPU is being worked on at the city level with our administration. The elected body isn't involved in any of that process. It's the administration of the borough that's working with the developers, as we do in any other project which involves development of any sort. And once that process goes through, then at that point we will present that to the public, to the council first. Council will approve it or not approve it, and then it would move forward to the consultation process. But in order for us to do that, we've clearly also stated that we need to add the transport issues a part of it. There's other elements of that PPU project that we're still working on with our partners in the City of Montreal in order for us to present a viable project to council and then have it go to the consultation process. So at that point, as we've always said since the beginning, merci, Monsieur le Président. It is at that point that the public will have an opportunity to see the project and deposit any of their comments related to it. Thank you.
Alors, moi, j'aimerais poser une autre question.
Allez-y avec votre autre question, monsieur.
With all due respect to Mayor Bass, I believe the councillor McIntyre said here in February, knowledge is power. Lack of knowledge is lack of power. I believe what you have described, monsieur, is more like a procedure of the Star Chamber, not worthy of the City Council of Montreal. That is my opinion. I think other people in this room feel the same way. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes, would you want to, perhaps I should ask Miss McIntyre, since I've...
Alors, la question a été posée à Madame McIntyre.
Thank you. I do believe that knowledge is power, and I thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Barnard. Indeed, in May of 2014, there was a private closed-door presentation that was made to Pierrefonds Borough Council members. We did receive a document that outlined some sort of a process, a planning process, but without showing us any details of what an eventual plan might look like. And each page of that PowerPoint document was stamped diagonally with the word confidential. So we were made to understand that even this process was not to be shared with citizens or indeed anybody outside of the Borough Council. Since that time, I have come back several times to ask, where are we in the process? Where are we in the planning? What does this plan look like? What are people to expect? Because I have more and more people calling me and arriving at my office, and they are fearful because they don't have knowledge. And when we are left in darkness, when we are left in ignorance, that generates an environment of fear and of misunderstanding, and it continues an environment of miscommunication and ultimately of mistrust towards the process and towards the people that are in place to oversee that process. So once again, following this City Council meeting last month and following the long debate that we had about the issue, I did send an email once again to the Borough Director, and I copied Mayor Bass on the email, and I asked once again, where are we in the process? Can I please know what's happening with the plan? And I had no response. And so I thank you for continuing to come and ask your question, and I hope that...
En conclusion, Madame McIntyre.
What I would hope is that in this process, we will at some point include the citizens and include the elected officials before it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you. Merci, monsieur. Merci. Bonne soirée.
Merci beaucoup.
Alors, notre prochain invité, monsieur Hayek, monsieur Albere Hayek. Bonsoir, monsieur.
Good evening. Bonsoir. I believe that the question that the two previous interveners asked about Western Pierrefonds have not been answered, so I'm going to ask Mayor Coderre, or have you had meetings with the developer in Western Pierrefonds, meetings whose purpose or whose outcome was some planning of the project in Western Pierrefonds?
Question. Mr. Mayor.
No meeting at all.
Okay.
The only thing that happened, I made the announcement. We said that there will be a process. End of story.
Thank you.
Question.
I'll ask the same question to Mayor Bass, please.
Monsieur Bass.
Did you have any meetings with the promoter that discussed the project in Western and the development in Western Pierrefonds?
Monsieur Bass.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hayek, for your question, and the answer is the same as Mr. Coderre. I have not had any meetings with the promoters to discuss the project, and I've stated that at council at the borough level, and I've also stated it here. All the meetings that have taken place with the promoters have been with our administration, as I stated to Mr. Hobus, and that's the same answer essentially that Mayor Coderre has given as well. Thank you.
Merci, monsieur. Bonne soirée. Merci. Vous avez posé vos deux questions. Merci.
Mr. Grilly said
Monsieur
that
Hayek,
he had
Mr.
discussion.
Mr. Hayek, okay, Mr. Hayek, you used to the rules here at the council. You have asked your two questions.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
En el centro de la pampa vive un pimiento, sol y viento pa' su vida, sol y viento pa' su vida.